20 essential Docker commands for beginners to start your Docker journey. Docker version will give you the version of Docker components. Docker dash dash version will give you the installed Docker CLI version. Docker info will give you the system-wide information about Docker installation. Lot of information can be received from the Docker info command. Docker help to get the help for the Docker commands. Docker images will list all images available locally. If you want to search for a particular image in the Docker Hub, Docker search image such as Docker search Ubuntu will search for Ubuntu based images in the Docker Hub. If you want to pull a particular image, pull means downloading the image. So if you want to download an image from the Docker Hub, Docker pull command. So if you want to pull Ubuntu, Docker pull Ubuntu. If you want to remove one or more images, you can use Docker RMI command. Now, if the image is used by container, this will not work. You have to use the force option, either -F or -force. Both are same. If you want to list running containers, Docker PS. If you want to list running containers plus stop one, Docker PS -A for all. If you want to run a new container from an image, Docker run command. So this particular command will run the new container from the image specified here. Now, if you want to run a container with a custom name so that you can perform the actions, you can use --name. So here --name will run this particular container with a custom name. -D I will explain in a bit. So there are two ways of running the container. One is the detached mode -D. One is the interactive mode -it. If you want to run a container in the background in a detached mode, you can use -D option. If you want to run a container and attach to it in an interactive mode, then you can use -et. So when you run this particular command, the Docker will run in the background. When you run this particular command, you will be attached to that container in the interactive mode, and then you can run the commands using the bash terminal. Now, if you have a Docker image running and you want to execute the commands inside that particular Docker, then you can use Docker exec. So this particular command will run the interactive commands into the container and what command you want to run. So this will open up the bash shell and then you can run the bash command. So this is one of the ways of executing the commands inside a running container interactively. If you want to start and stop container, Docker stop, Docker start, Docker restart. If you want to remove or delete a container, Docker RM. This will delete or remove the container. This is one of the best commands. It will give you a detailed info about your container, such as what is the network, what is the Docker, who is the maintainer, what is the volumes, etc., etc. Docker inspect is a powerful command, will give you lot of the detailed info about your container. If you want to fetch logs of a container, running container, you can use Docker logs command. This will pull the logs of the Docker from the running container. One of the best commands, Docker stats, view real-time container resource usage. So this particular command will give you how much CPU, how much memory, how much network is used by your Docker. If you have more than one Docker, you can find out which Docker is consuming the resources using Docker stats command. If you want to copy a file from container to host or a file from host to container, you can use Docker CP command. You can use the Docker CP command to copy the file from container to your machine or from your machine to the container. Both is possible. If you want to list all the networks available in the Docker, Docker network ls. And if you want to create a new network, Docker network create. If you want to list the Docker volumes, Docker volume ls. And if you want to create a new volume, Docker volume create. Another favorite command, Docker run v. V stands for mounting the volume. So if you want to run a container with a mounted volume, you can use this. And what is a mounted volume? If you have a directory or a file system on your local machine and you want to expose that directory to the Docker so that the Docker can see those files, then you can use the -v option. Here, this is the local directory, and whatever files which are present in this directory will be visible to Ubuntu container under this particular directory. So this is your local directory, this is your mounted. This is one of the way you can expose your files to the Docker container. If you want to build a Docker image from the Docker file in the current directory, use docker build command. If you want to clean up unused images, you can use docker image prune. This will only clean up the dangling images. A dangling image is one which is untagged and isn't referenced by any container. So this one will remove dangling images. When you stop a container, they are not automatically removed unless you started them with a --rm flag. If you want to remove all the stopped unused container, you can use the docker container prune because the stop container will still take the space on your machine. So docker container prune will remove the stopped or unused container. Finally, the docker system prune, which is the dangerous command. This is a shortcut that prunes images, containers and networks. So this will remove all stopped containers, networks not used by at least one container, dangling images, unused build cache. Now by default, this particular command will not remove the volumes. So if you want to remove the volumes along with all of this, use --volumes. So with this, I would like to say thank you. So in this particular tutorial, we learned 20 essential Docker commands for beginners to start your Docker journey. Thank you. Bye-bye.